Hello everybody, Thy Lord Root here, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Play Kerbal Space Program Career Mode. So we've got a few things that we're going to try to do this episode. As you might remember from the last episode, we put the Münar Station in orbit around the moon. And one of the first things I wanted to try to do was to basically send up this fuel system that we could use to refuel our probes and everything. And this will be important because we'll also have kethane that we're going to get from the moon itself. Not sure how permanent the station will be. It's as you'll see, there are some design flaws that have to do with how we're connected to or how we connect the modules together. I should have used a bicoupler or a tricoupler design, but it's a little bit too late for that now. And so, you know what we'll do is we will go ahead and we'll send this thing up into orbit, and we'll try to get a close approach with the moon. You can see that I've expanded on my launch stage a bit. We still need a lot of science at this point. This launch stage is very weak in that we don't have the main cell engine, and I may make that the next thing I go after. But we'll go ahead. We'll get this thing launched. And even though this thing's moving pretty slowly at first, we will find that this is enough to give us plenty of fuel. And we'll use that core stage there to get us to the moon. And so, I'm gonna probably, here in a moment, pull back on the throttle because we are getting a lot of lift out of this. Although it's, yeah, we'll just cut back just a hair. And we'll get this thing up into orbit. And it's probably really loud to y'all. I've got headphones on, so it's sometimes difficult for me to tell. But maybe we could afford to put a little bit more juice into that rocket. But part of the issue that I ran into is that we're missing a lot of the parts that we need in order to make this a high thrust rocket, which is what we want because a rocket with high thrust will get us out of the atmosphere sooner. And you can see I've had to attach these SRBs just to get everything I suppose out of the atmosphere. Now we are more or less hitting the velocity we need to hit, though. I mean, we are I'll just cut back just a little bit. I mean, we definitely, when we run out of fuel, we'll want to kick our throttle back up, but we're already doing very well in terms of our fuel consumption. So we're gonna jettison those SRBs, and we will lose a little bit of velocity in the process, but that'll be okay. And you'll notice too, in order to give this central stage a little bit more oomph, I've attached the radial engines. I mean, it seemed like we weren't really getting that much in terms of thrust out of this, because those skipper engines only get 660. And so I decided the best idea was to attach those radial engines to give me just a little bit more thrust. The other thing I did was I actually put the control surfaces on that central stage, and that's going to help with stability quite a deal. But at any rate, we're going to be doing our gravity turn pretty soon. I'm thinking within the next couple of seconds. And once we do that, I mean, we'll fly this like we generally fly this, using the weird 45 seconds to apoapsis method. And so we'll just go ahead and do that. In fact, we should have been doing that a while back. We may get a little bit less efficiency out of this. And I'm hoping that my inclination won't be all screwed up because of the way that I've chosen to do this, but we'll jettison two of these outer rockets here in a bit. And we're going to be, this will pretty much put us to where we're parallel to the direction we're going. And in fact, I will turn just a bit just to make that happen. Now, if I recall correctly, this rocket, we're going to want to start turning in pretty soon. I mean, our inclination is probably going to be a little bit screwed up, so it's, this thing is a little bit hard to turn to begin with, and it has a lot to do with the fact that, this is just such a massive rocket. I could put a ton of reaction wheels on it, but really there's no reason to. And we'll go stage only here. Now, a nice thing about this is that we're carrying a fuel tank into orbit, so we've actually, to some degree, have free fuel. And that's a nice thing to have. Let's look at are we increasing or decreasing in our apoapsis? We don't want this thing to, you know what, in fact, I'm gonna bring our, entry up just a little bit so we can hit that 34-second mark, or not 34, but 45. This thing does seem to have a tendency to lean down, and I'm not quite sure what's causing that. Probably to some degree the weight. Let's check our we will have to jettison those after a while, it looks like. But that will be pretty soon. I think once we do that, we're going to have enough in the way of forward momentum in order to start getting our speed up, and we're ultimately going to end up with about maybe 130 meters per second of delta V that we're going to have to account for. I mean, that's, it's entirely possible we won't. In fact, I'm just going to set on this prograde marker. At least for a little bit. We're going to, we are very much in the atmosphere right now, so you know what, I'm going to bring this up to what is initially an 82 kilometer apoapsis, and then we will continue our burn. Oh, maybe, maybe we don't have to burn too much. I don't think we'll have to burn too terribly much. We'll just have to, see. I mean, one of the problems with these massive rockets is that, oh wow. Well, I guess we're going to be closer to 85 by the time we get out of the atmosphere, because we are going to lose, some of that due to drag. Let's see, how did I do here? Not as well as I would have hoped. But our apoapsis is going to drop a great deal in this time. And we are technically in orbit. I mean, we're not in a very good orbit. We'll arrow break if we don't do anything about it, but we are nonetheless in orbit. So let's see what we can do to make that more or less even. One of the issues we have with this rocket is how wobbly it is. I mean, it is a fairly wobbly little rocket, as you can see here. But we'll make that apoapsis burn. And in fact, we've got quite some time to make that. I'm going to deploy these solar panels. And there's no reason not to have them. And I need to get in the prograde position. That would probably be very helpful. The reason I'm extending these panels so much is that we have a probe here, and as we all know, probes sort of suck power, at least in comparison to the crew capsules. So, this burn should not take long at all. Now, of course, I could have put all of this on an action group, but action groups and space stations don't mix all that well. And we'll just go down here and correct that, or maybe I overshot it. Yeah, I overshot it just a little bit, it looks like. Let's extend those other solar panels because they will need to be extended. And our next goal will be for us to, it'll be for us to get a Münar rendezvous. Now, the way this is designed, you'll notice we have those 4 extra docking ports there, and that's not a mistake. The reason for that is, even though we've got 6 docking ports on the space station, we might want to add modules, or we might... Originally, I was going to put some probes there. The trouble with putting the probes on there, I found out, was that it's difficult to design a lightweight probe that's really doesn't offer, that offers more than a lightweight, crew capsule. But we'll get this intercept going. I'm gonna put it in a phasing orbit of about 300 kilometers or so. And what's our inclination? I mean, we're gonna have to change our inclination anyway. But that's not bad. I mean, it could be better, but it could also be worse. So you'll notice another thing I put on this module is I put a reaction wheel on it, and that's because this thing is probably about as massive as the crew module. So we have a couple of things to do here. One of them, as it turns out, would appear to be to fill up these fuel tanks. And I'd rather fill them up now than in the middle of a burn. Because if we fill them up in the middle of a burn, then bad things can happen. We could totally screw everything up. Now the idea with this is we're going to use this space station to get all of the science off of the moon that we possibly can. I believe we have everything in terms of science that can be performed on the moon. So let's take this tank here. Let's transfer a bit out of it. And we'll just fill up this intermediate stage. Of course, when we get to the Münar Station, we're going to have to set this thing up so that we're gonna have to set it up so that it we get all the fuel out of the stage before we get rid of it. But we've got another 13 minutes or so. So we'll go ahead, we'll get into we're pretty close to the proper orientation. I'm going to give myself about a minute to do any corrections on that. Because with as bulky of a craft as this is, you never really can be too sure. And now we also happen to have RCS on this thing, and in fact this thing should have RCS jets on it appropriately near the RCS tanks. But we'll go ahead, we'll get that burn going right now. There's a number of ways we can refuel this, so one of them is definitely going to be by sending out, by collecting fuel from spent probes. We send out, because that is going to be fairly important. Oh no. And we are a little bit more sprightly now, which is nice. Let's see, how close is our actual apoapsis? I'll take that. That's a pretty good deal there, because we definitely want to do phasing. I guess in addition to that, we'll raise our inclination just a little bit. That shouldn't take too much in the way of fuel. It's almost pointless to raise inclination in this case because our space station isn't perfectly inclined. I mean, it's some 7 degrees off, which I thought I had taken care of, but there's really not much you can do about that. However, it's cheap to do an inclination burn here, so it's better to do it now. And that, I'm reckoning, is going to take 1 or 2 seconds to complete. So we'll do that. And we did overspend our fuel budget a bit, but that's close enough for me. Now the fortunate thing is, now that we've got Navy Fish's mod, we can match up rotations. We'll just quick save here. By being able to match up our rotations, we will keep this thing more or less straight, which I suppose is not terribly important, but it does, help with the aesthetic value of the station. Makes it look a little bit nicer for sure. And even though this thing is temporary, I mean, we are pretty much going to, I think we're going to deorbit this thing whenever we get a little bit more in the way of technology, just because it's really what I want is those Clampetron Senior docking ports, the big ones. That may not actually come for a while. I mean, it's that the decision between that and the main cell, I mean, I'm almost beginning to think the main cell should take precedence because we can do a lot more with the main cell engines. The docking ports we really don't have to have because we have ways around that. We can use a bicoupler or tricoupler design. That will in turn reduce wobble just a little bit. I mean, I guess I shouldn't take this thing. The hard decision here is whether or not to take this thing out of service whenever we get better docking ports. Because on the one hand, the thing that kind of sucks about these docking ports is that they aren't very stable, and they introduce these weird rotations into the. Oh, I guess I gotta burn now. I did slightly miss that burn, but they do introduce these weird rotations into the space station. At least my testing showed that. I've done my best to try to reduce that by the initial design had two yellow RCS tanks on the ends, and that's fine, but I think it gives it more of a fulcrum. We'll get this set up right here. In fact, we need to change some aspects of this. We'll set this as a target, and we will rendezvous. We definitely, at this juncture, we want to get, oh, we have a negative 1.0 here. What is the, that is 4.5 kilometers. We can make any changes we want there, and I mean, we're going to want to slow down anyway, just a hair. Because I can always make that intercept a little bit closer. I mean, I'm thinking that if I change the inclination, it will be fairly close. And we'll prepare to make that burn now. It's not really, it's only 70 meters per second delta V. And why are we moving so slowly? That's a bit bewildering. But see, we're 3.4 and we definitely want this inclination change, I think. We'll bring that in just a little bit. So how close are we now? 3.1 kilometers. It's okay, we can do better, I think. 2.4, 2.0, 1.4. Can we get any closer? I mean, I'm thinking. The answer to that is probably no. Let's try rotating in. On 0.3, is there any better we can do there? 0.9. Well, 0.9 is close enough. We can. 0.7 is even better. We can make any corrections we want by doing that. And so, we'll go ahead, we'll set up that burn. We got another 24 minutes or so until we hit it. And that's what makes time acceleration such a wonderful thing. This game would be pretty difficult if we didn't do time acceleration. Now, of course, I'm reminded a bit of another space game called Orbiter, where you can fly the Apollo missions. And the Apollo missions, if I'm not mistaken, were a 3-day trip. The the Apollo computer is actually simulated in real time there, so it turns out that because of that, the the maximum time acceleration that they'll allow you to do is times 10. And that is pretty slow if you think about it. That means that you have 3 days, so that's 72 hours. 1/10 of that is 7.2 hours. And that is quite a long time to be. Whoa. Maybe I should have used RCS there. That's quite a long time to be, waiting to get captured by something. Of course, I'm sure that the astronauts in the Apollo, command module, while they were on their way to the moon, they didn't really care that it took them 3 days to get there, in fact. So I'm sure that they were probably betting on it. There we go. What's our final approach? Can we get that any closer? I'm going to try rotating this just a little bit. This isn't the world's best approach, to be honest. I mean, docking can be quite annoying at times. I'm actually going to leave it at that because we do need to kill a lot of Delta V here. We don't want to overshoot the target, because at this point we're going to be flying using RCS only. That's going to be important for us because we do get a lot more efficiency out of RCS. We make these fine adjustments that we need to. But in reality, I mean, I don't want to really fool around with the maneuver node system much longer. We'll just null that out, or get as close as we can. I mean, we might as well use this fuel while we have it. But this thing is rather bulky, as you can see. Oh, what will we do? We'll get ourselves started on a burn towards the target that we can easily get out of. And we'll jettison this stage. I think that's probably what we should do. And that just happens to be in our prograde direction. Oh, we'll give this about 10 meters per second of velocity. Because we can actually recover from that pretty easily. And I'm going to quick save here just in case what I'm doing is wrong. But we'll take this stage here and we will transfer it back in. We've almost got a full tank of liquid fuel because of that. So because you can see we are in prograde, that will mean that when we jettison this, as you'll see, will crash down into the planet at some point, which will be nice. It's not going to crash down as much as I wanted it to. I mean, I thought I had enough Delta V on there to do that, but it'll hit a mountain on the moon or something. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. So we'll set this thing up as a target again. No, not. Well, you know what I could do actually? While we're waiting on our approach there, we'll switch to this. We need to make sure that this thing is in an agreeable position. And we also want to set this thing up so that we want to control it from that center probe, and we also want to make this a space station, and this is the Münar Station. Now that that's done, we will get back to the probe rig and we will dock with that. As you can see, this thing is inherently unstable, which kinda sucks, to tell you the truth. That it's our closest approach, 1.9 kilometers, so we're going to have to get close by, and we're going to null out our velocity pretty soon. Now fortunately we do have a lot in the way of RCS, so we'll just bring that down. And yes, it will take a little bit of time. I mean, we are at least getting pretty close in. And we may actually be in a bit of... We may have a couple of problems, because I don't think... I mean, we may be out of power. It is hard to tell, but if we are out of power, that's going to be a problem for us, because these reaction wheels do take up a great deal of power, and we are, of course, on the dark side of the moon. And I'm just going to kick that up to maybe 5 or so meters per second. Let's see if we can even get that closer. I want to try get that within 1 kilometer per second. Looks like 2 may be the best that we're going to be able to do. And we'll just wait for this thing to slow down. We are being a bit aggressive with this. I think part of it is that, you know, nobody really wants to wait I mean, I sure don't. It just ain't any fun to wait. But I'll go ahead and I'll bring down our velocity just a little bit. And we'll get this thing docked really soon. We are pretty close already. I mean, you can see the you can see the spaceship from here. And once we hit zero velocity, it's going to then be a question of getting that thing docked up top there. And I think we're close enough. Let's just give it a little bit more in the way of play here. I think that is more than close enough though. So we'll just slow this thing down and we'll begin the docking procedure immediately. So, let's just switch back to our station here. We have moved a little bit. And I imagine that probably has something to do with the reaction wheels. But we'll get in line here. We're pointing. That docking port is pointing north, so we want to be pointing south, I think. And we'll get up on there and we'll bring this thing down quite a bit. And we actually will now, that's a little bit too fast. We'll get that thing in the center there. And that's the trouble with the space station like this, is that it does tend to wobble a lot, and we don't really want the wobbling. I mean, fortunately, these reaction wheels are, they're helping quite a bit. And that space tug, you'll notice, is detachable. So, the question is, will we gather more in the way of science here? I'm not sure if we'll do it on this mission. I will at least launch the lander vehicle. But I need to pay attention to that. We're getting dangerously close. However, I do want to bring this down quite a bit. And we'll go ahead, we'll push down as well. I mean, this is certainly one of the most aggressive maneuvers that I've done in a while. I don't like to be aggressive during docking because the tolerances are kind of tight, but oh, you know what? We need to get aligned as well. That's actually very important for us. But I mean, we're carrying a bunch of fuel too. I mean, it's going to be okay. So we actually have a fairly good thing going on, and we could link those two together. I guess the one thing I didn't really consider was that maybe I should have moved that thing so that it was closer to the crew module. But we'll leave it as it is right now. It's that is, we could do orbital surgery on it later. In the meantime, we will go back to the Space Center and we will launch this other rocket of mine, which is our lander. And because we're going to have so much fuel available to us, then this lander is going to be our ticket to collecting a whole bunch of science. And we have new instruments too. Those new instruments will help a great deal. And just take off these struts. They're kind of pointless because we're not holding anything down. But this is about a 5 or 6 ton lander. And we will, of course, want to make sure that, in fact, I don't think I have any batteries on this. I forgot to put them on here. So we'll put on some batteries so that, we can keep a good charge going. This thing is 4 of those LV03 engines, and it's got a quarter fuel tank plus one of those toroidal tanks for each of them. So we have about 55 units of fuel per tank. And it was actually a fine balancing act figuring out, how I should do that, because it's not really an easy thing to do, designing these landers. I mean, this is, like I was saying earlier, like I was just going to send a whole bunch of probes down, and that could have in principle worked, but given that the probes are about the same mass as the landers, and given that we've already landed on the moon like 3 or 4 times, then I think that it's probably worth considering that the landing stage be manned. Because as far as I can tell, there's no reason not to. I mean, we'll actually, in most cases, we'll get a little bit more science out of it because we can collect crew reports and we can collect samples. Now, of course, that may mean that in order to get our samples back, what we'd need to do is send that return capsule, and unfortunately, we're going to have one man stranded there if we don't design our capsule correctly. But, at the same time, we'll get all of these other measurements. I mean, we can save up everything else. The crew reports, we don't get losses from. And neither do we get losses from the EVA reports, so it's worth considering that we just go ahead and allow that to happen, And this thing was a little bit over-engineered. I mean, it's you do run into the issue when you're designing these things that you know that you have to get down into a certain orbit in order to cover everything. And by far the hardest thing that's going to show up in exploring the moon is exploring the polar regions, because our polar, um I think I need to start turning shortly. You know, the polar regions, like, we're in an equatorial um inclination. If we try to go to the poles, we have to change our inclination, which is one of the more expensive maneuvers to do. So we've got this deal going on to where, we can't just send these guys wherever. We really have to think about how we're getting there, and that may involve maybe disposable fuel tanks that we can drop on the surface. I'm not sure. I don't really want it to come to that. I want to be as eco-friendly as possible, as it were. But, we may have to drop some fuel tanks onto the surface of the moon in order to make that happen. As it stands, though, we have about 1.25 tanks of fuel, like the long round tanks, and I think that's actually a pretty good sign, because that means that. Oh wait, did we burn out that stage? I better jettison that. I didn't realize that we were. It might help to stage your rockets. I'm just going to kill it here because we're still quite a bit in the atmosphere. So we didn't leave with as much fuel as I intended. I mean, it would be nice if they would show you the staging in the map view. I'm not sure that would bother me at all. But we'll circularize this thing. In fact, I'm going to wait until we get to 70 or so, because this apoapsis will drop a couple of kilometers. And it ain't going to be pretty. I mean, it's actually going to be alright, but you'll have to give me an excuse to say that every now and then. So, yeah, we're now in space. We can do our orbital maneuvers without worrying about our apoapsis dropping so much. And that is not the best burn I've ever done. But, I mean, it's passable. Well, you know what I need to do? Because I made this mistake in testing. I need to deploy these solar panels, or else we're going to find ourselves in between a rock and a hard place. If we don't deploy those, then it's very likely that we will find ourselves running out of power, because the reaction wheels do take a fair amount of it. Plus we have the capsule torque as well. That was another thing I found too, with the probes, is that the capsules seem to have a lot more torque. And I found myself attaching reaction wheels to the capsule. which of course adds mass. Now this adds mass as well, having crew in it, because they need to eat and breathe and use the toilet and whatnot. So there is that disadvantage to it, but oh, well, that was not good. My time shift key got stuck. I think we may have overdone it. Yeah, we did, but that's okay. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're not going to be in Kerbin orbit forever. In fact, we're leaving it very shortly. Let's see, set that as the target. I will need to adjust that inclination just a bit. And we need to make sure we're going to be on the right side of the moon too. I mean, you can do an intercept on the wrong side, but it costs a lot of fuel. You don't want to do it that way. So we have about 19 minutes until that burn, and then we're going to be heading towards the moon. I guess I should also, once this is done, I should test to see if the new kethane works. I mean, I'm thinking it should, because I did download the new the 0.23 version, which, by the way, 0.24, from what I've read, is supposed to have quite the array of features. They're adding in reputation and budgets, which I think might be kind of interesting. It's Papricot and I were talking about doing something kind of similar, with the viewers kind of directing the budget, but I think that would be a nice addition to the game. Oh yeah, we'll stay on that just a little bit. Now, I don't know if in this circumstance we're going to have enough fuel left by the time we get this vehicle out into lunar orbit for it to really make much of a difference whether or not we dock this thing or not. However, I think in my last run, the thing that killed me the most was that I was using a ton of fuel because I kept on missing maneuver nodes because I wasn't able to move around quickly enough. So that would probably be an okay thing to do. We'll just bring this down. That's the descending node. We need to bring this up to, I'm going to bring it up to maybe 0.2. I'm not going to go all the way to 0.0. Or we'll just leave it at 0.5. 0.5 seems to be a good inclination. And that is burning north, I believe, since we're burning on the descending node. I mean, it probably does seem a little bit lazy that we might do that, but it looks like it'll probably take a lot of delta V to change that. So, what's our new... I mean, that's not too bad. I mean, I think by the time we get back, um, or we get into orbit around the moon, we're not really going to have much in the way of delta V, or at least enough for us to bother docking. But you never can tell. I mean, it's what's it, 248, 246. It's not really something that's easy to tell. I mean, it's if we have enough. I do know that that last stage there will more or less, we'll be able to get rid of it no matter what, and that's important because we don't want space debris. 248 and 239. I mean, I guess really because this is a transfer orbit, we don't, or because we're using this to stage a transfer orbit rather, we don't really care if it's perfectly elliptical. Let's just get into position. That is going to be somewhere up here, I'm sure. I mean, the nice thing is that despite, the amount of time that it seems to be taking to get this thing to its proper point, this thing, is going to provide quite, we're going to get there definitely. Although, adding those batteries, 4 of them, at least, may have substantially changed things. I guess we'll see when we stage how much that changed the mass. It does look kinda cool, though, I mean. And we do more or less have every contingency planned for. So I think we're going to burn somewhere between 12 and 11. That seems to be the best bet for us. And again, I'll, do the, I'll do the rendezvous rather aggressively just because, we have plenty of fuel back at the station. And to be honest, we actually have plenty of fuel on the landing stage. Now, previously, we would use this central member of the first stage in order to, in order to assist us in braking. But we don't have that option. This is much more akin to the, it's not really directly like the way the Apollo astronauts did it because they didn't have a space station in orbit above the moon. But, wow. That is something. Wait, we got the wrong. No, we don't have the wrong thing selected. Our. How did our, ascending node get so steep? You know what I think it is? I think we had a gravity assist coming in. That is a little bit more delta V than I wanted to spend. I mean, we have more in the lander, but I really was not looking forward to spending that amount of delta V. I mean, to be fair, the rocket is just going to crash into the surface of the moon anyway. I mean, there's no reason to leave any space debris around, and it's actually rather senseless to, considering we already have one bit of space debris that I will eventually look into taking care of, because we don't want to leave that there and imperil our astronauts. But such as it is, we'll get this inclination change out of the way. That's just gonna have to be good enough, because I don't really want to, fine tune my inclination. We'll just go straight for the approach, and we'll rotate that. And we could wait around by orbiting the surface, but who wants to do that? I mean, that takes a lot of time, and we got a decent encounter here of 1.4 kilometers per second. And it'll take maybe not the rest of our fuel. I mean, we're going to have a little bit of fuel left, and we might actually be able to put something in. I wouldn't hold my breath, though. And unfortunately, we are already late, because I lost the maneuver node. But we're just going to have to deal with the consequences of that, I suppose. There is, well, yeah, we may have some spare fuel left over, and I don't know if it's just that, the last time I did this, it was, I'm not going to say perfect, because it wasn't, but it was closer to perfect, I imagine. Our encounter is at 4.8 kilometers. So let's see, what can we do? Can we maybe burn prograde to help that? I mean, it's kind of a weird solution, but it's a sensible one. I just had a decent thing going on here, and I don't know if it's reporting differently, because just do a little bit more. Maybe if I rotate in a bit. I mean, I do want to get about, maybe, I don't want to go too fast, because that will waste a lot of delta V. Although, well, yeah, I mean, we can we can go ahead and make that burn happen when it does. I mean, usually whenever you set the encounter for like one or within 1 or point 0.2 kilometers, you end up going so fast that you zoom past the object you're trying to rendezvous with. So I don't really feel like dealing with that because that's a much more difficult situation for us to recover from. Nonetheless, I will burn at about 1 second or so. And we'll just say that's close enough. So what would be nice is if you could tell your, if you could easily tell your separation, your real separation as opposed to, what's predicted by the, what's predicted by the game whenever you do the maneuver nodes or whatever. I think I'm gonna start burning retrograde with respect to the target about 1 kilometer in or so. And actually, I think this stage is going to go fairly soon. There is a lot less there than I thought there would be. And we have very little in the way of Delta V left in this stage, so unfortunately that stage is about to be gone. And we use this craft's internal power in order to get us to where we want to go. One thing I will do before we do that is I will burn towards the target. We do at least want a bit of a shove. And this should be enough to get us moving towards it. I mean, I don't think it's going to be enough to do much else. Although, maybe I'm wrong. It's our current encounter. Our current encounter is 0.1 kilometers. Not bad. Not bad at all. I'm just not sure that those 3.5 units of fuel are going to be worth it in the end. And of course, as usual, we found ourselves docking on the wrong side yet again. I mean, we've at least got batteries. But I don't really feel like docking on the side of the moon, because you can't see and you'll run out of power, and it's just all around not a very good situation for anybody. So I think we're about to hit our closest approach. I'm going to null out that velocity, and we will go ahead, we'll go on RCS for this, because there we go. Let's just burn. We're not going to burn anything, actually. We're just going to send this thing off into into the planet like we did the last one, where hopefully it will collide with something or other. I mean, it's nice thing is this puts us in the right direction. So um, let's make sure. Yeah, that is definitely going to collide into the planet. Now we'll just have to select a docking port. Let's see, we'll set as target. No, quit moving. We are moving a lot faster than we really ought to. So we did overshoot this just a little bit. We'll slow this thing down just a little bit. And you'll notice this is a little bit more sprightly than some of our previous things. I think I'm going to go for that docking port there. And we will control from this docking port. Okay, what happened to the Navy fish window? We'll just, these side docking ports are a little bit difficult to work with because, they are kind of an inconvenient place. I'm thinking, I mean, there's a whole bunch of weird things going on here. Like, for instance, well, first of all, this thing is, you can never really tell when the controls, like, they get inverted, and they get inverted randomly, which is a little bit on the annoying side. I mean, I think partially it has to do with the manner in which I'm rotated. So I think we should at least rotate this thing so that it's centered. It's not strictly necessary, but I think this way our controls should at least be correct. And of course they're not. I haven't really quite figured out what causes that. Or maybe if we lock it in with the SAS, it'll drift a little bit less. I mean, one can only hope. Because, I mean, that's one of the deals here, is that's something that makes stocking a little bit difficult to do. Is that particularly with this mod, and you know what, I bet we have a rotation going on, which may explain a little bit why we're having so much trouble keeping this thing lined up. I mean, this thing is probably going to wobble just a little bit. And I wonder if maybe, no, turn off the, no, 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 no. This is not a good situation to be in. This is a rather disastrous situation to be in. So are we rotating, or is the ship rotating? That is, of course, the question. But I have cause to believe that both may actually be accurate here. Well, let's see if we can make something of this at least. I mean, I'm not very happy that the controls have decided to invert. I mean, I guess I'm happier that they're both inverted now than anything, but this is a little bit on the ridiculous side, because now we got this thing going on down here, and I need to pull back a bit. I mean, this is by far the most annoying part of docking. And I mean, I do have to admit I am cheating a little bit because I am using this docking alignment indicator, but it's still pretty annoying because I'm gonna take this time to see. We are rotating. We've been rotating for quite a while. And this is part of our issue. I mean, this is why this station eventually may be scrapped. Because whether it's the inline reaction wheels that cause the instability, or whether it's this thing right here, and I'm just going to try to dock to the closest thing possible. I mean, whatever it is, it's quickly becoming annoying. And we'll have to try to get this thing at least to the point to where if it's okay. Well, what's going on here? Why can't I? Am I out of juice? I mean, we'll probably. Okay, why? I'm not sure those of you who aren't doing this right now can understand how annoying this is. Particularly when you're trying to line something up and you hit the complete wrong keys. because you're incompetent and you shouldn't be flying a spaceship. Really, I mean, I say that, but how many people really should be flying a spaceship? I mean, it's. This game doesn't. I'm sure doesn't really give you a sense of how hard it actually is. We'll just. We'll be a little bit more aggressive. I have plenty of RCS to burn. In the meantime, I really need to find something to do with that weird rotation problem. And I probably also, at some point, need to figure out how to best deal with our other issue. Which is, the wobbling thing. Unfortunately, we're kind of screwed now because I didn't actually test the docking ports. And we've got these big things on them and they're going to wobble just a little bit. No matter what. I mean, the bigger docking ports, if we had them, would be ideal here. But we don't have them, so we have a bit of a problem with that. Because, that, of course, will mean that, we want to keep this thing as straight as possible, and it just seems like there's too much going on in the game in order for that to happen at the moment. That would be nice if we could, though. I mean, um, it's just keeping those things straight is such a pain in the ass. I mean, you can't really do much about it. And we have burned up a lot more RCS than I wanted to, just because of our issue with, the space station's rotation. So when we build our interplanetary ship, the interplanetary ship is going to have to be built to resist this, because we can't have this thing flexing in the middle of a burn. However, with that having been said, we are about to dock, and this will help us out tremendously because what that'll essentially mean is, let me turn off SAS and RCS here. What that essentially means is that we will have at least this ship that we can use for science. And we are going to sort of be stuck in this weird, rotation for a while. But, we will make do for the time being. At any rate, this has been Thy Lord Root, and I will see you later.